I wasn't invited to my father's birthday dinner. I found out 3 days after it happened, when my cousin Amanda posted photos on social media. 47 people gathered at Romano's, the Italian place downtown where they know my father by name and keep his favorite table reserved. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I scrolled through the images at my desk during lunch. There was the judge, as everyone still called him despite his retirement, cutting into a layered cake. There was my Aunt Susan raising a glass. There was Sonia Hale, standing close to my father's shoulder, her hand resting on the back of his chair like she'd been placed there by a portrait photographer. No one had mentioned it. Not a text, not a voicemail, not even the courtesy of an excuse. I set my phone down and returned to the grant proposal I'd been editing. Medical research doesn't pause for family drama, and I had 3 weeks to convince a federal committee that our neurological recovery study deserved another year of funding. The work mattered. The work was measurable. The work didn't lie. My father called that evening while I was running analyses. Julian. His voice carried that particular tone he used when he wanted something to sound casual, but had rehearsed it. How are you? Fine. Busy. The study going well? It's going. A pause. I could hear him shifting in his chair, the leather creaking the way it had in his home office for 30 years. I wanted to talk to you about last weekend, he said. The dinner? Yes. Another pause. We kept it small, intimate. I know how you feel about large gatherings, and we thought it might be easier if we kept the guest list to people who really knew how to navigate things. Navigate things, as if family relationships required the diplomatic skills of a peace summit. 47 people is intimate? You saw the photos? Not a question. Amanda shouldn't have posted those. I asked everyone to be discreet. I leaned back in my chair and watched the data visualization rotate on my screen. Neural pathway recovery rates plotted across 18 months. Clean lines, measurable progress. Nothing ambiguous about it. Why would you need to be discreet about a birthday dinner? Julian, the judge voice now, the one that had commanded courtrooms. You know this past year has been difficult, for all of us. I'm trying to move forward in a way that's healthy. Sonia has been very supportive, and people have been understanding. Understanding of what? Of the fact that life continues, that we honor your mother's memory by living, not by freezing ourselves in grief. My mother had been gone for 11 months. Terrence Pierce had been seen with Sonia Hale publicly for 8 of them. The math wasn't complicated. I'm not frozen, I said. No, but you're stuck. You work too much. You don't return calls. Susan mentioned she hasn't seen you at family events in months. I've been busy with the study. You're always busy with something. He exhaled, and I could picture him pinching the bridge of his nose the way he did when he found other people's behavior tedious. I'm concerned about you. We all are. Sonia suggested that maybe you're having trouble accepting change, and I think she might be right. Sonia suggested. Sonia, who had never met my mother. Sonia, who planned fundraisers and charity auctions and always seemed to be photographed at the center of whatever event she organized. Sonia, who had somehow become the authority on my emotional state. I'm accepting change fine, I said. Then prove it. Come to the house Sunday. Just family. Sonia's making brunch. At Mom's house. At my house, Julian. It's been my house for 32 years. I closed my eyes. The data visualization kept spinning behind my eyelids. Patterns, connections, the way damaged neural pathways sometimes rerouted themselves around trauma, finding new ways to send signals. I'll check my schedule, I said. Please do. His voice softened slightly, the way it did when he wanted something. It would mean a lot. To everyone. He ended the call before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at my research. We were studying patients who'd experienced significant neurological events. Strokes, injuries, trauma that rewired them. The fascinating thing wasn't the damage itself. It was what happened after, how the brain compensated, how it built new pathways around the broken parts, how it learned to function again, different but operational, carrying on as if nothing fundamental had changed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photos. Not my father cutting cake or Susan raising a glass, but the smaller details. The way people were positioned, the way Amanda's camera had caught certain expressions when subjects didn't know they were being photographed. In one image, my Aunt Claire was looking at Sonia with something that wasn't quite approval. In another, my father's smile looked rehearsed, the same expression he'd worn in campaign photos during his judicial elections, pleasant, appropriate, empty. And in the background of 3 different shots, barely visible, was my mother's china cabinet, the one she'd inherited from her grandmother, the one she'd spent hours arranging, particular about which pieces went where. Through the camera's lens, I could see the shelves were different now, reorganized. Sonia's aesthetic, probably. Cleaner lines, less cluttered. I got up and made coffee at 3 a.m. My apartment was quiet, except for the hum of my laptop and the occasional car passing on the street below. I opened my email and found the message I'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. It was from my mother's attorney, subject line, estate items, final distribution. I'd handled most of her belongings months ago, working through her closet and desk with my Aunt Claire, boxing things for donation, keeping a few items that mattered, photographs, her wedding ring, a scarf that still smelled like her perfume. But there were pieces of furniture still at the house, things my father said he'd deliver when I had space for them. The attorney's email listed 3 items remaining: a bookshelf, a reading chair, and her writing desk. The desk. I remembered it from childhood, a small mahogany piece with brass handles and a fold-down surface where she'd paid bills and written letters. She'd been protective of it, not in an aggressive way, but in the manner of someone who needed one space that was entirely hers. I'd rarely seen inside the drawers. They'd always been locked, and I'd never questioned why. I typed a response to the attorney. I'll arrange pickup this week. Sunday arrived cold and gray. I drove to my father's house, my mother's house, the house where I'd grown up, and parked on the street instead of the driveway. A small choice, but mine. Sonia answered the door. Julian. She smiled with practiced warmth, the kind that involved teeth and eye contact, but nothing deeper. We're so glad you could make it. Come in, come in. She was wearing a cream sweater and dark jeans, an outfit that managed to be both casual and carefully considered. Her hair was styled. Her makeup was natural but present. She looked like someone who'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine article about gracious hosting. Your father's in the kitchen. Can I get you coffee? Mimosa? Coffee's fine. She led me through the living room, and I tried not to catalog the changes. New throw pillows, different curtains. The photographs on the mantel had been reduced. My mother's face appeared in 2 images now instead of 7. Both were from years ago, carefully selected to show her at her most formally composed, least personally present. In the kitchen, my father stood at the island arranging pastries on a serving plate. He looked up and smiled, and for a moment I saw genuine relief in his expression. Julian. Good. You're here. I said I'd check my schedule. And you found time. I appreciate that. He gestured to the coffee maker. Help yourself. Susan and Mark should be here any minute. I poured coffee and leaned against the counter. Sonia moved around the space with easy familiarity, opening cabinets, retrieving serving dishes, acting like someone who'd cooked in this kitchen 1,000 times. Maybe she had. I'd been avoiding this house for months. So, my father said, how's the research coming? The grant proposal's submitted. We'll hear back in May. Confident? The data's strong. That's good. That's important work you're doing. The conversation felt scripted, like we were reading from a play neither of us had properly rehearsed. Sonia glanced between us, and I saw her expression shift. A subtle calculation, the look of someone deciding whether to intervene. Julian, she said, her voice gentle, your father mentioned you might want to pick up your mother's desk soon. I've been careful not to move it, but we're thinking of turning that room into more of a home office space, and... This week, I said. I'll get it this week. Perfect. There's no rush, of course. We just want to make sure you have everything that's meaningful to you. We, as if she'd been part of these decisions all along, as if her opinion on my mother's belongings carried weight. The doorbell rang. Susan and Mark arrived with their teenage son, and the house filled with the noise of greetings and casual conversation. More family appeared over the next 30 minutes. Claire, Amanda, 2 cousins I barely knew. Everyone seemed comfortable, familiar with the new arrangement, adapted to the updated version of family gatherings. I stood near the window and watched them, the way Susan hugged Sonia, the way my father's hand rested on the small of her back when he passed her in the hallway, the way no one mentioned my mother's name except once, when Claire asked where a particular serving bowl had gone, and my father said, "Oh, Catherine kept that in the back. We've reorganized since then." We've reorganized. I finished my coffee and set the cup down carefully on the counter. My hands were steady. My expression was neutral. Inside, something cold and methodical was taking notes, cataloging details, building a list of small erasures that added up to something larger. When I left 2 hours later, making excuses about work, my father walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know it's not easy." "It's fine." "Julian." He put his hand on my shoulder, the gesture both paternal and performative. "Your mother would want us to be happy. She'd want us to move forward. I looked at him, at this man who'd sat behind a bench for 25 years, weighing evidence, determining truth, delivering judgments. His face was composed, sincere, convinced of his own narrative. Would she? I said. Not a question. I drove home in silence. When I got back to my apartment, I checked my coat pockets for my keys and found something else. A small brass key on a worn leather tag, the kind that opens old furniture locks. I stood in my entryway, holding it, trying to remember when I'd last worn this coat. Months ago, before everything changed. The key hadn't been there then. Someone had put it in my pocket recently. Someone who wanted me to find it. Someone who'd known exactly which coat I'd wear to Sunday brunch. The key sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days while I worked late at the lab, pushing through data analysis that didn't require pushing, staying in the sterile environment of measurable outcomes where everything had a verifiable answer. On Wednesday evening, I finally called the attorney. Mr. Pierce, she said, her voice professionally warm. I was hoping to hear from you, about the desk. I can pick it up this weekend, Saturday morning. Actually, that works perfectly. Your father mentioned he'll be out of town. Less complicated that way. Less complicated. Everyone seemed invested in making things less complicated, which usually meant making them less honest. Did my mother leave any instructions about the desk? I asked. A pause, paper rustling. She specified it should go to you, along with its contents. She was quite clear about that in her will. The desk and anything inside it were to remain sealed until distributed to you directly. Sealed. The drawers were locked when we inventoried the estate. We left them that way per her instructions. I assume you have the key? I looked at the brass key gleaming under my kitchen light. Yes, I said. I have it. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies and the threat of rain. I drove to the house early, wanting to be done before the weather turned. The driveway was empty. My father and Sonia had left for some weekend trip to wine country, according to the text he'd sent. Make yourself at home, he'd written, which would have been funny if it weren't so precisely wrong. I let myself in with the key I'd never returned after moving out. The house was quiet in a way it never had been when my mother was alive. She'd always had music playing or the television on low, ambient noise that made the space feel inhabited. Now it felt like a showroom, clean, arranged, waiting for occupants who hadn't arrived yet. The desk was in what had been my mother's sitting room, a small space off the master bedroom where she'd spent mornings with coffee and evenings with books. Sonia had clearly been planning changes. Paint samples were taped to one wall. A catalog for office furniture sat open on the windowsill. I stood in the doorway for a moment, remembering my mother in her chair by the window, legs curled under her, reading glasses perched on her nose. She'd looked up when I'd knocked, always surprised to be interrupted, as if she'd forgotten the rest of the house existed while she was in this room. The desk was smaller than I remembered. Mahogany, brass handles, 4 drawers with keyholes. I ran my hand over the surface, feeling the grain of the wood, the slight imperfections from decades of use. I tried the key in the top drawer. It turned smoothly, the lock mechanism still solid despite its age. Inside were papers, bills, receipts, tax documents organized in folders. Nothing unexpected. The second drawer held stationery, pens, stamps. The third had photographs, most of them old, from before I was born. The bottom drawer stuck slightly when I turned the key. I had to pull harder, and when it opened, I understood why. Journals. 5 of them, leather-bound, stacked carefully and taking up the entire drawer. The top one had my mother's handwriting on the first page. Catherine Pierce, January 2023. 11 months ago. Right when she'd started getting sick. I sat down on the floor and opened it. Her handwriting was shaky in places, steadier in others, as if she'd written during good days and bad. The first entry was dated January 15th. The diagnosis is real now. Not just tests and possibilities, but actual medical certainty. Dr. Sharma used words like aggressive and treatment options and quality of life. Terrence held my hand during the appointment. Afterward, he cried in the parking lot. I've never seen him cry before. I held him and told him we'd fight this together. I believed it when I said it. I turned pages, reading quickly, then slowly, then stopping completely on an entry from February. Terrence says he has emergency court hearings. 3 times this week he's left during the evening, coming back after midnight. I don't want to be suspicious. I don't want to be that person, sick and paranoid, doubting everyone. But his phone keeps lighting up with messages he doesn't read in front of me, and yesterday I saw a notification preview before he turned the screen away, a heart emoji, and can't wait to see you. My hands were steady as I turned to the next entry. I asked him about the hearings. He gave me case numbers. I looked them up. They're real, but the hearings were all during normal business hours, not evenings. He lied. I'm certain now. And the worst part is that I'm not even angry. I'm just tired. Too tired to confront it. Too tired to fight both this illness and this betrayal at once. I kept reading. Entry after entry, my mother documenting what she'd noticed, what she'd confirmed, what she'd chosen not to say, phone records she'd checked, hotel receipts she'd found in his car, a text message from someone named Sonia that had appeared on the family iPad because his messages were synced. Last night was exactly what I needed. You make me feel like I can handle anything. March entries were shorter, written during treatments, between hospital visits. Julian came today. He brought soup from that place I like and sat with me while I ate 3 spoonfuls before giving up. He didn't mention that his father wasn't there. He didn't mention anything except his research and a funny story about his colleague Maria. He's protecting me. I can see it in the way he changes the subject whenever Terrence's name comes up. My sweet boy, always watching, always noticing, always trying to shield me from things he thinks I don't know. I closed the journal and sat with my back against the wall, staring at nothing. She'd known. The entire time she'd known. And I'd known she'd known, even though we'd never spoken about it. Some understanding had passed between us during those hospital visits, during the quiet moments when my father was mysteriously absent, during the times I'd found him in parking lots on his phone, turning away when he saw me approaching. I remembered one afternoon in particular, late March. I'd arrived at the hospital early and found my father in his car, phone pressed to his ear, smiling at something the person on the other end was saying. Not the smile of someone discussing legal matters, the smile of someone in the beginning stages of something new, when everything still felt bright and secret and separate from the obligations of regular life. He'd seen me, and the smile had dropped. He'd ended the call quickly, professionally, stepping out of the car with the expression of a man interrupted during important business. "Julian, you're early." Traffic was light. I was just wrapping up some calls, emergency motions, you know how it is. I'd known exactly how it was. And I'd said nothing because my mother was upstairs in a hospital bed, hooked to machines that beeped and hummed, and confronting him would have accomplished nothing except making her final months more painful. So I'd stayed quiet, watchful, taking notes without consciously meaning to, building a catalog of absences and excuses and moments when his attention was clearly elsewhere. I picked up the next journal. April entries. May. My mother's handwriting getting shakier, entries getting shorter, but still documenting, still recording. Sonia called the house today. She didn't identify herself, but I recognized her voice from when she left that voicemail on Terrence's phone last month. She asked for him. When I said he wasn't available, she said, "Oh, Catherine, I didn't realize you'd be answering. I'm so sorry." Sorry for what? For calling? For the affair? For the fact that I'm sick and she's not? I told her Terrence would call her back. She thanked me. We were both so terribly polite. Another entry, dated 3 days later. I've decided not to confront him. What would be the point? He'd deny it or apologize or promise to end it, and none of those responses would change anything. He's already gone. Not physically. He's here, dutiful, holding my hand during appointments, bringing me water, adjusting pillows. But the person I married checked out months ago. Maybe years ago. Maybe I just didn't notice until I got sick and couldn't ignore it anymore. I read through June, July, August. The entries became less frequent, sometimes just a line or two. But they never stopped documenting, phone calls she'd overheard, times he'd claimed to be somewhere he wasn't, the way he'd started talking about moving forward and not dwelling in sadness while she was still alive, still present, still aware of everything he was planning for after. The final entry was dated August 23rd, 1 week before she'd passed. I've been thinking about what happens to the truth when the person who knows it is gone. Terrence will rewrite this year. He'll tell people we faced my illness together. He'll paint himself as the devoted husband who suffered through loss. Maybe he'll even believe it himself eventually. Memory is flexible. People accept the stories they're told, especially when those stories make them comfortable. But I'm leaving this. All of it. Every observation, every receipt, every moment I noticed and didn't confront. I'm leaving it for Julian because he saw it too. He never said anything, and I loved him for that restraint, for choosing my peace over his anger. But someday he might need permission to tell the truth. Someday he might need evidence that he wasn't imagining things, that his observations were accurate, that protecting me was the right choice then, but doesn't have to be the choice forever. The desk goes to him. The key will find him when it's time, and he'll decide what to do with what's inside. That's not my choice anymore. It's his. I closed the journal and sat in that quiet room for a long time. Rain had started outside, light drops against the windows. The paint samples on the wall seemed obscene now. Sonia's plans to transform this space into something functional. erasing the last room that had been entirely my mother's. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Hope pickup went smoothly. Sonia and I are extending the trip through Monday. Beautiful weather here. I looked around the room. At the desk, at the journals now spread across the floor, at the paint samples and furniture catalogs. Beautiful weather. I took photos of every journal entry, all of them. It took 2 hours, making sure each image was clear, each word legible. Then I packed the journals carefully back into the drawer, locked it, and carried the desk out to my car. The rain was heavier now. I got soaked loading the desk into my trunk, securing it with bungee cords, covering it with a tarp. By the time I finished, I was drenched and shivering. I sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine, looking back at the house. Lights were on inside. We always left lights on. A habit from childhood meant to make the place look occupied, but it looked empty anyway. A house waiting to be transformed into something new, something that matched the story my father wanted to tell about his life. I drove home carefully through the rain, checking my rearview mirror every few minutes to make sure the desk was secure. When I got to my apartment, I called my colleague Maria. "Are you busy?" I asked. "Define busy." "I'm meal prepping and watching a documentary about octopi." "Why?" "I need help moving furniture, and I need someone who's good with document digitization." "How good?" "Professional grade, something that would hold up to scrutiny." A pause. Then, "What are you planning, Julian?" "Telling the truth," I said. "Eventually." "That sounds ominous." "It's not. It's just accurate." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Bring your good scanner." Maria arrived with her professional scanner and a bottle of wine she didn't open. She took one look at me, still damp from the rain, journals spread across my dining table, and said, "Okay, we're doing this properly." She set up the scanner with the efficiency of someone who digitized sensitive research documents for years. High resolution, color correction, automatic page detection. Every entry would be crisp, readable, time-stamped by the device's internal clock. "You don't have to tell me what this is," she said, adjusting the settings. "But I'm guessing it's important." "It's evidence." "Of what?" "That I'm not imagining things." She looked at me over her glasses, the way she did when research subjects gave her incomplete answers. "Julian, I've known you for 4 years. You don't imagine things. You observe them, catalog them, and spend 6 months checking your data before mentioning them to anyone. Some people think I imagine things. Those people are wrong." She gestured to the journals. "Let's make sure there's no ambiguity about that." We worked in silence for 3 hours. Maria handled the scanning while I organized files, creating folders by date, cross-referencing entries with my own memories. February 15th, I remembered that hospital visit, the way my father had checked his phone 17 times during the 2 hours we'd been there. March 23rd, the afternoon I'd found him in the parking lot, smiling at his phone like a teenager. Every entry my mother had written corresponded to something I'd witnessed. Not imagined, not misinterpreted. Witnessed. "These are journal entries," Maria said finally, not looking up from the scanner. "Personal observations." "Yes." "From your mother." "Yes." "And you're preserving them because stories change when the people who remember them are gone. Documents don't." She was quiet for a moment, feeding another page through the scanner. "My grandmother had Alzheimer's," she said. Toward the end, my uncle started telling stories about their childhood that weren't true. Not lies exactly, just revisions, making himself more central, more heroic. My mother would correct him, but after Grandma passed, he told the revised versions at the funeral, and people believed them because who was there to contradict him? "What did your mother do?" "Kept her mouth shut. Said it wasn't worth the family drama." She looked at me. "She regrets that now." We finished scanning at midnight. 5 journals, hundreds of pages. Everything backed up to 3 separate drives and cloud storage with encryption. Maria packed up her equipment and paused at the door. "Whatever you're planning," she said, "make sure you're ready for the consequences. Truth doesn't just damage the people who lied, it damages everyone standing nearby." "I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you seem very calm about something that should probably make you angrier." "I'm angry." "You don't look angry." "I'm controlling it." She studied me for a long moment. "That's what worries me. You've been controlling things for almost a year now. At some point, that control is going to shift direction. Make sure you're aiming it at the right target." After she left, I sat with my laptop and read through the digital files. Every entry, start to finish, looking for patterns I might have missed. My mother's observations weren't just about the affair, they were about erasure. The way my father had started talking about their marriage in past tense while she was still alive. The way he'd begun making plans that didn't include her, speaking about the future as if it were singular, as if her presence in it was already negotiable. One entry from July stood out. Sonia sent flowers today. Lilies. I'm allergic to lilies. I've been allergic my entire adult life. Terrence knows this. He thanked her via text, which I saw because he left his phone on the kitchen counter. He said, Catherine loved them. Past tense. I'm sitting in the next room, itching from the pollen, and he's already speaking about me in past tense. I pulled up my phone and scrolled back through old photos. There was one from July. My father had sent it to the family group chat. Beautiful flowers from a friend, he'd written. The arrangement was clearly visible. Lilies, white and pink, dramatic and showy. My mother wasn't in the photo. 3 people had responded with heart emojis. No one had mentioned that my mother was allergic. I spent the next week building a timeline, not for anything specific, just for accuracy. Every journal entry matched to a date, every date matched to what I remembered, what I could verify through text messages, calendar events, social media posts. The affair hadn't started when my mother got sick. It had started at least 6 months before, during a community fundraiser where Sonia had been the event coordinator and my father had given a speech about civic responsibility. The progression was documented across all 5 journals, first mention November 2 years ago. Terrence came home talking about this woman Sonia who organized the gala. He said she was refreshingly competent and actually understood logistics. He mentioned her 3 more times during dinner. By January the following year. He's consulting with her on multiple events now. Says she's good at managing people, getting things done. I suggested we have her over for dinner. He said she's too busy, travels a lot for work. April. Found a hotel receipt in his jacket. Same weekend he said he was at a judicial conference in Sacramento. The hotel was local. When I asked him about it, he said he'd gotten confused about which trip it was from. But the date was printed clearly. He wasn't confused, he just didn't expect me to look. The timeline was meticulous. My mother had been a librarian before retiring, organized, methodical, trained to document sources and verify information. Her journals weren't emotional rants. They were careful records, written by someone who understood that memory fades, but documentation remains. 2 weeks after digitizing everything, I got an invitation. Not a casual text or phone call, but an actual printed invitation on heavy cardstock. You're invited to an evening celebrating community and connection. Join us for cocktails and conversation as we support the Valley Arts Initiative, hosted by Sonia Hale and Terrence Pierce. Hosted by. Joint names. Official partnership. The event was at a gallery downtown, scheduled for a Friday evening. Black tie optional. RSVP requested. I recognized several names on the host committee. Judges, lawyers, city council members. People who valued reputation, who understood social currency, who would notice and remember who attended events like this. I RSVP'd, yes. The gallery was modern and angular, all white walls and track lighting, the kind of space that made everything inside it look important. I arrived exactly on time, wearing a suit I'd bought for academic conferences, dark and forgettable. Sonia stood near the entrance in a red dress that commanded attention. She spotted me immediately, her expression flickering through surprise and calculation before settling on gracious welcome. Julian, I'm so glad you could make it. She air-kissed near my cheek, performing warmth. Your father will be thrilled. He's been worried you feel disconnected from the family. I've been busy. Of course. Your research. Terrence tells everyone about your work. He's so proud. She guided me through the crowd, introducing me to people whose names I immediately forgot, keeping up a steady stream of conversation that required minimal response. She was good at this, managing social situations, making people feel included while maintaining control of the narrative. My father appeared from a cluster of former colleagues. He looked genuinely pleased to see me, which made everything more complicated. Julian, you came. You invited me. I did, but you haven't been... He paused, choosing words carefully. Available lately. I'm available now. Sonia touched his arm lightly. I need to check on the catering. You two catch up? She disappeared into the crowd, leaving us standing near a sculpture that looked like twisted metal but probably had some deeper meaning I wasn't interested in understanding. This is good, my father said. You being here, it shows you're adjusting. To what? To change. To the fact that life moves forward. He sipped his wine. Your mother would want this, you know. She'd want us to find happiness again. Would she? She was never selfish. Never one of those people who believed suffering was noble. She'd want us to embrace opportunities for connection, for growth. I watched him while he talked. This man who'd spent 25 years determining truth from fiction in a courtroom, who'd built a career on weighing evidence and making judgments. He believed what he was saying. He'd convinced himself completely. "Did you know Mom was allergic to lilies?" I asked. He blinked. "What?" "Lilies. The flowers Sonia sent in July. Mom was allergic." Yes, I knew that. It was a kind gesture. Sonia didn't know about the allergy. "But you did. And you thanked her anyway. You said Mom loved them." His expression shifted, moving through confusion towards something more guarded. "Julian, what is this about?" "Just remembering. Mom kept journals. Did you know that?" "Journals?" "Personal ones. She wrote in them regularly, observations about her day, about things that happened, about people." He was very still now. "I wasn't aware she did that." "They were in her desk, the one I picked up last weekend. Lots of interesting entries, very detailed. She had excellent documentation skills." "Julian." His voice dropped, taking on the tone he used when he wanted to shut down a line of questioning. "If you're trying to make some point, make it clearly. I don't appreciate ambiguity." "No point. Just wanted you to know I have them. The journals. Everything she wrote. Every observation, every date, every detail." And nothing. "I'm just telling you they exist, that I've read them, that I'm preserving them for accuracy." Sonia reappeared before he could respond, her social radar detecting tension. "Everything okay over here? You both look so serious." "Just catching up," I said. "Family history, old memories." "How wonderful. Family stories are so important." She smiled at my father, then at me. "Terrence tells me you're quite the researcher, methodical, detail-oriented." "I try to be thorough. Thorough is good, though sometimes people get so focused on details they miss the bigger picture." She said it lightly, conversationally, but her eyes held calculation. "Don't you think, Julian, sometimes we need to step back and see the whole story, not just the individual facts?" "That depends on whether the story is accurate." "Well, of course, but accuracy is subjective, isn't it? 3 people can witness the same event and remember it differently. That's why context matters. Why intent matters." "Documentary evidence helps with that," I said. "Takes the subjectivity out, dates, times, specific quotes, things that don't change based on perspective." My father set his wine glass down with slightly too much force. "Julian, I think we should—" "Actually," I interrupted, "I should go. Early morning tomorrow. Data analysis waits for no one." I walked out before either of them could respond, moving through the gallery crowd with purpose. Behind me, I heard Sonia's voice, smooth and practiced, steering my father back toward social obligations. But I'd seen his face in that moment when I'd mentioned the journals, seen the calculation, the assessment, the flash of something that might have been fear, or might have been anger, or might have been both. Outside, the air was cold and clear. I sat in my car for a moment, watching well-dressed people enter the gallery, laughing and greeting each other, performing the rituals of social connection. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "We need to talk. Not now, but soon." I deleted it without responding. At home, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Memorial Project. Inside it, I started organizing the scanned journal entries chronologically, adding photos, my mother's photos from before she got sick, when she'd looked healthy and whole and present. I had hundreds of them, family gatherings, holiday celebrations, ordinary moments that would seem innocent until placed in sequence, time-stamped, contextualized by her own words about what was happening outside the frame. This would take time, weeks, maybe months. But I had time, and I had something else now. I had their attention, both of them. They knew I had evidence. They just didn't know yet what I planned to do with it. That uncertainty was its own kind of power. The Memorial Project consumed my evenings for the next month. I worked on it the way I worked on research, systematically, without emotion, building something that could withstand scrutiny. Maria stopped by twice a week, ostensibly to discuss our actual research, but really to check that I hadn't disappeared entirely into whatever I was creating. "You're being careful, right?" she asked one evening, watching me arrange photos in chronological sequence. "I'm always careful." "That's not what I mean. I mean careful about your own mental state. This level of focus on something painful, it's not healthy. It's documentation. Facts don't hurt me. Facts presented a certain way can hurt everyone." She picked up one of the printed photos. My mother at a family gathering, smiling at something off camera. "She looks happy here." She was. That was before. Before what? Before she got sick. Before she started noticing things. Before everything became a performance. Maria set the photo down carefully. What's the end game here, Julian? You build this presentation, and then what? Show it to your father privately? Confront him at Christmas? What exactly are you planning? I don't know yet. That's a lie. You're too methodical not to have a plan. She was right, but I wasn't ready to articulate it yet. The plan was still forming, crystallizing around a central truth I'd only recently accepted. My father hadn't just betrayed my mother. He was erasing her, rewriting their story into something palatable, something that let him move forward without guilt, without consequence, without anyone questioning his narrative. The memorial video wasn't about revenge. It was about preservation, about making sure the truth stayed visible even after everyone had agreed to look away from it. I'm thinking of it as a tribute, I said finally. Something to honor her memory properly, her actual memory, not the sanitized version everyone's agreed to remember. And your father will love that. I don't care if he loves it. Julian. She waited until I looked at her. He's still your father. This will destroy whatever relationship you have left. We don't have a relationship. We have a performance. I play the difficult son, he plays the concerned parent, and we both pretend the past year didn't happen the way it actually happened. So you're willing to burn that down? I'm willing to stop pretending. She left shortly after, and I went back to work. The video was taking shape now, 23 minutes of carefully curated content. Photos fading in and out. My mother's voice from old home videos, laughing at something my father said, back when his affection had been genuine. Journal entries displayed as text over black screens, white letters that appeared slowly, giving viewers time to read and absorb. The genius of it was the framing. Everything looked like a standard memorial tribute, the kind of thing families created to celebrate someone's life. Sweet photos, loving captions, nothing overtly accusatory, but the timeline told a different story. A photo of my parents at a gala in November, 2 years ago. The caption read, "Supporting the arts together." Then my mother's journal entry from the next day. Terrence spent the entire evening talking to the event coordinator. Came home energized in a way I haven't seen in years. Another photo from January last year. My mother in her garden, looking thin but healthy. Caption, "Finding joy in simple moments." Then her journal entry. "Started chemotherapy today. Terrence said he'd be at the first appointment but got called to an emergency hearing. I went alone. The emergency hearing doesn't exist. I checked the court schedule." Each pairing was surgical. Not manipulative, not exaggerated, just factual. Photo, caption, journal entry. Photo, caption, journal entry. A rhythm that built momentum, that made the pattern impossible to ignore. The technical quality was important. Maria had helped me with that, making sure every transition was smooth, every piece of text readable, every audio clip clear. This couldn't look amateur. It had to look professional, intentional, worthy of respect. I was reviewing the final sequence when my phone rang. My father. "Julian, we need to talk." "About what?" "You know about what. About whatever point you're trying to make. This tension isn't healthy for anyone." "I'm not tense. I'm just busy." "You threatened me at the gallery. Don't pretend you didn't." "I didn't threaten you. I told you I had Mom's journals. That's information, not a threat." A long pause. I could hear him breathing, choosing his words. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Nothing. Everyone wants something. You're angry, I understand that. You feel like I moved on too quickly. Maybe I did, but punishing me won't bring your mother back." "I'm not trying to bring her back." "Then what are you trying to do?" "Remember her accurately. Make sure other people do too." "I remember her perfectly. I was married to her for 34 years. "And how much of the last year do you remember? The real version, not the story you've been telling yourself?" His voice hardened. "I was there. Every hospital visit, every treatment, every difficult conversation with doctors. I held her hand. I made decisions about her care. I watched her suffer. Don't you dare suggest I wasn't present. You were present, physically. But where was your attention? Where was your focus? Julian, do you remember being in the hospital parking lot in March? On the phone, smiling like you just heard the best news of your life? I watched you. I saw your face. That wasn't the expression of someone worried about his wife's treatment plan." Silence. Then, "You're taking moments out of context, making assumptions about things you don't understand." "I understand what I saw, and so did Mom. She wrote about it. All of it. Dates, times, details you've probably forgotten. So what? So she was upset? People get paranoid when they're sick. They misinterpret things. You can't..." "She wasn't paranoid. She was observant and accurate. Every single thing she documented, I witnessed independently. We both saw what was happening. We just chose not to say anything because making her last months peaceful seemed more important than making you accountable. Then why bring it up now? Because you're rewriting history. Because Sonia is hosting events with you. Because Mom's china cabinet is reorganized and her sitting room is getting turned into a home office and everyone's acting like the past year happened some other way. Life moves forward, Julian. That's what people do. They heal. They rebuild. Your mother would understand that. Would she? Or is that just what you need to believe so you can sleep at night? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was controlled, judicial, the tone that used to end arguments when I was a teenager. I'm going to say this once. Whatever you think you're planning with those journals, don't. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass this family. Don't turn your grief into something ugly. Is that a threat? It's advice. From someone who's been navigating difficult situations longer than you've been alive. You think you have evidence of something. You think you can hurt me with it. But all you'll do is make yourself look bitter and unstable. We'll see. Julian, I ended the call. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from anger, not exactly. From something colder. The recognition that the performance was over. We'd both dropped our scripts. Whatever happened next would be without pretense, without the careful dance of familial obligation. I sat at my desk and opened the memorial video file. Watched it through from beginning to end, looking for weaknesses, places where someone could argue manipulation or misrepresentation. There were none. Every journal entry was sourced, every photo was authentic, every timeline was verifiable. The video ended with my mother's final journal entry, the one about leaving the truth for me to decide what to do with. The last image was a photo of her from before she got sick, healthy, smiling, holding a book in her garden. The caption read simply, Catherine Pierce, remembered accurately. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Sonia. Your father is very upset. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong. Please consider the impact of your actions on people who care about you. I stared at the message. People who care about you. As if destroying my mother's final year of peace was an act of caring. As if erasing her from family gatherings was love. As if I was the one causing harm by refusing to participate in their revision. I deleted the message without responding. 3 days later, another invitation arrived. Not printed this time, just an email to the extended family group. Join us to celebrate Terrence and Sonia's engagement. Intimate gathering at the house. Saturday, November 18th. Please RSVP. I read it twice, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Engaged. Less than a year after my mother's passing, and he was engaged. The email thread filled up quickly with congratulations. Aunt Susan. Finally, some good news. Cousin Amanda. So happy for you both. Uncle Robert. About time, buddy. Life's too short. I scrolled through the responses, watching the family collectively endorse this narrative. No one mentioned the timeline. No one expressed even mild surprise at the speed. They'd all decided this was fine, acceptable, even celebratory. My cousin David was the only one who responded with restraint. Congratulations. We'll be there. No exclamation points. No effusive support. Just acknowledgement. I clicked reply all and typed, I'll be there, planning to bring something special to mark the occasion. Maria called me that night. David texted me, she said, told me about the engagement, asked if you were okay. Why would he ask you? Because you put me as your emergency contact on our research paperwork, and apparently he noticed. Also because he's not an idiot and can tell you're barely holding it together. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're planning something. I can hear it in your voice. I looked at my laptop screen, the memorial video file glowing in the darkness of my apartment. What do you know about projection equipment? I asked. Julian, hypothetically, if someone wanted to show a video at a family gathering, what would be the most reliable format? Something that couldn't be easily interrupted or shut down. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. She was quiet for a long moment. Auto-playing USB drive plugged directly into a smart TV? Most modern TVs will autoplay video files. Put it in before people arrive, start the playback, and it'll run through the entire file before anyone can stop it without literally unplugging the television. That's what I thought. Julian, listen to me. This is not a good idea. Whatever you're planning, there are better ways to handle this. Name one. Talk to your father privately. Show him what you have. Give him a chance to what? Apologize? Promise to slow down his engagement? Agree to mention my mother more often? That doesn't fix anything. That just makes me complicit in the erasure. So, instead, you're going to detonate a bomb at his engagement party? I'm going to tell the truth, with evidence, in front of people who deserve to know they're celebrating a lie? And you think that'll make you feel better? I think it'll make the truth matter, which is more important than how I feel. She sighed. You're going to lose your entire family over this. You know that, right? They won't forgive you for humiliating him publicly. They already chose him. They chose his version of events. I'm just making sure they know what they're endorsing. After she hung up, I exported the memorial video to a USB drive, tested it on my television. It auto-played perfectly, running through the full 23 minutes without interruption. I made 3 backup copies and labeled them clearly. Catherine Pierce Memorial Tribute. Nothing threatening, nothing that would make someone question whether to plug it in, just a son's tribute to his mother, appropriate for a family gathering. I RSVP'd to the engagement party with a simple message. Looking forward to it. I've prepared something special to honor family memory. My father didn't respond. I arrived at my father's house an hour before the engagement party started, early enough to be helpful, late enough that the caterers were already setting up, providing cover for my presence. My father answered the door looking surprised and wary. Julian, you're early. Thought I could help with setup. He studied me for a moment, trying to determine whether this was genuine or strategic. That's thoughtful. Come in. The house had been transformed. Flowers everywhere, not lilies, I noticed. White roses and something else I couldn't name. Sonia's aesthetic, clean and expensive. My mother's furniture had been moved around, pieces repositioned to create better flow for the party. The china cabinet was gone entirely. Where's Mom's cabinet? I asked. Storage. It didn't fit the space anymore. Storage where? Does it matter? Julian, if you're here to start something, I'm here to celebrate. You invited me. Sonia emerged from the kitchen wearing a cream dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She stopped when she saw me, her smile freezing in place. Julian, how nice of you to come early. The words were warm, but her eyes were calculating, searching for threat. I wanted to help. Also, I brought something. I held up the USB drive. A memorial tribute, for Mom. I thought it might be nice to play during the gathering, honor her memory as part of the celebration. My father and Sonia exchanged glances. That's very sweet, Sonia said carefully. But we're trying to keep tonight focused on the future, on joy and new beginnings. Mom was part of this family for 34 years. Seems appropriate to acknowledge that. Of course we acknowledge it, my father said. But tonight isn't about... It's a family gathering. At her house, where she lived, where she raised me. Playing a memorial video isn't inappropriate. The tension stretched between us. A caterer walked past carrying champagne flutes, breaking the moment. How long is this video? My father asked finally. 23 minutes. It's well made, professional, nothing embarrassing. Julian, I'm going to play it, I said quietly. Either you let me set it up now, with your permission, or I'll find another way. But these people, your guests, our family, they're going to see it. Sonia touched my father's arm. Terrence, maybe we should... No. He cut her off, his jaw tight. Fine, play your video. But if it's anything other than what you've described, if you've turned this into some kind of accusation, it's just photos and journal entries, Mom's words, her perspective, all factual. Journal entries? Sonia's voice went sharp. You can't just... People's private thoughts aren't meant for... She left them to me. She wanted them preserved. And she was very clear about accuracy mattering. My father was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between fury and fear, and a kind of sad recognition, as if he finally understood that I wasn't going to protect him anymore. Where do you want it played? I asked. He gestured toward the living room. The TV in there. But Julian, I'm warning you. I know. You've made your position clear. I set up the USB drive while they watched. The TV was new, one of those large smart displays that probably had a dozen streaming services connected. I found the USB port, plugged in the drive, and watched the file appear on screen. The preview image showed my mother in her garden, smiling at the camera. It'll autoplay once I start it, I said. Should I wait until everyone's here, or... Wait, my father said. And Julian? This is your last chance to reconsider. I've been reconsidering for a year. I'm done with that. Guests started arriving at 6. The usual family members, Susan and Mark, Claire, Amanda, David, cousins I barely knew, some of my father's former colleagues from the courthouse, Sonia's friends from her event planning world. Everyone dressed nicely, holding wine glasses, congratulating the happy couple. I stood near the living room entrance, watching them. The easy smiles, the casual conversations, the way they'd all adapted to this new reality without question, without pause, without anyone asking whether the timeline was strange or the circumstances troubling. David approached me with 2 beers. "You look like you need this." "Thanks." "So?" He glanced toward the TV. "What exactly are we about to watch?" "A memorial video." "Julian." "You'll see. Everyone will." He looked at me for a long moment. "You know this is going to explode everything, right? Whatever you're planning." "I know." "And you're okay with that?" "I'm okay with the truth mattering more than everyone's comfort." He nodded slowly. "Then I guess we're about to see what the truth looks like." At 7 o'clock, my father called for attention. Everyone gathered in the living room, filling the couches and chairs, some standing along the walls. He stood next to Sonia, his arm around her waist, looking like the picture of a man who'd found happiness again. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "This past year has been difficult, but it's also shown me the importance of embracing life, of not letting grief prevent us from moving forward. Sonia has been an incredible source of strength and support, and I'm grateful to have her in my life." Sonia smiled up at him, and for a moment I almost felt something like pity. She probably believed her own narrative, that she was helping him heal, that their relationship was a natural progression, that my mother would have wanted this. "Before we continue," my father said, his voice careful now, "my son Julian has prepared something, a tribute to Catherine's memory." "Julian?" Every face turned toward me. I picked up the remote and pressed play. The screen went black. Then my mother's voice from an old home video. "Stop filming me, Terrence. I look terrible." My father's voice, younger, playful. "You look beautiful. You always look beautiful." Laughter. The image faded in. My mother at a birthday party, maybe 15 years ago, caught mid-laugh at something off camera. The room was silent. People smiled, recognizing the moment as appropriate, touching even. Then the first journal entry appeared. White text on a black screen. November 14th, 2 years ago. Terrence came home talking about this woman Sonia who organized the gala. He said she was refreshingly competent and actually understood logistics. He mentioned her 3 more times during dinner. The smiles started to fade. People shifted in their seats. Another photo, my parents at the gala. Caption: "Supporting the arts together." Another journal entry. December 3rd, Terrence is consulting with Sonia on multiple events now. Says she's good at managing people. I suggested we have her over for dinner. He said she's too busy. I watched the faces in the room. Susan looked confused. Claire's expression was hardening. Amanda had her phone out, but she wasn't looking at it. She was frozen, staring at the screen. My father moved toward the TV. "Turn it off!" I stepped in front of him. "Let them watch." "Julian, let them watch what she wrote, what she saw, what actually happened." The video continued. Photo after photo, each one paired with journal entries that built a timeline. The affair starting, my mother getting her diagnosis, my father's absences documented with dates and times, hospital parking lot conversations, hotel receipts, text messages she'd seen and recorded. Sonia tried next. "This is private. You can't just..." "She left these journals to me," I said, not looking away from the screen. "She wanted them preserved. She wanted the truth documented." The entry about the lilies appeared. Photo of the flower arrangement. Then my mother's words. "Lilies. I'm allergic to lilies. I've been allergic my entire adult life. Terrence knows this." He thanked Sonia via text. "Catherine loved them." Past tense. I'm sitting in the next room, itching from the pollen, and he's already speaking about me in past tense. Claire stood up. "Terrence, is this true?" My father's face had gone pale. "It's taken out of context. Catherine was sick. She was confused." "These are dates," David said, his voice quiet but clear. "Specific dates. Court records you can verify. Hotel receipts with timestamps." The video moved into the final months. My mother's handwriting getting shakier, entries getting shorter but more pointed. The March parking lot incident. April's confrontations she never voiced. May's resignations about being erased. Then her voice again from another old video. "I just want people to remember things accurately. Not the prettified version, not the story that makes everyone comfortable, just what actually happened." The final journal entry appeared. The one about leaving the truth for me, about how memory gets rewritten when the person who knows it is gone, about giving me permission to tell the truth when the time was right. The last photo faded in, my mother in her garden, healthy and whole and smiling. Caption: Catherine Pierce. Remembered accurately. The screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the caterers had stopped in the doorway, sensing something monumental had just occurred. My father found his voice first. You had no right. I had every right. They were her journals, her words, her truth. You've humiliated me, in front of everyone. You've turned private pain into public spectacle. You turned her final year into a lie. I just corrected the record. Sonia's face had gone from pale to red. You manipulative little... Don't, I said. Don't pretend you didn't know. She wrote about you calling the house, about you expressing concern while actively pursuing her husband. You knew exactly what you were doing. Susan stood up, her hands shaking. Terrence, those dates, while Catherine was in treatment? He didn't answer. The hotel receipt, Claire said. That was March. I remember March. We were all taking shifts sitting with her during chemo. You said you had court obligations. I did have obligations. Which ones? David pulled out his phone. Because I'm looking at the court calendar from March of last year, and I don't see any emergency hearings on the dates in those journal entries. My father turned on me. You've poisoned them. Turned them against me with a carefully edited presentation that makes me look... Like what? I asked. Like someone who had an affair while his wife was fighting for her life? Like someone who started erasing her before she was even gone? I didn't edit anything. Those are her words in order, with verifiable dates. That's not manipulation, that's documentation. Why? Sonia's voice cracked. Why would you do this? What do you gain from destroying him? I'm not destroying him. I'm telling the truth he refused to tell. There's a difference. My father moved toward the TV, yanked out the USB drive, and threw it across the room. Get out. Get out of my house. Mom's house, I said quietly. It was Mom's house first. Get out. I looked around the room one more time. Susan was crying. Claire's face was hard and unreadable. Amanda looked sick. David met my eyes and gave a small nod, acknowledgement if not approval. My father grabbed my arm. I pulled away and walked toward the door. Behind me, voices started rising, questions, accusations. The sound of something carefully constructed beginning to collapse. I reached my car and got in, hands steady on the steering wheel. Through the window, I could see figures moving in the house. Someone, Susan, maybe, pointing at my father. Someone else pulling out their phone. The caterers backing away from the doorway. The engagement party was over. The performance was finished. Whatever happened next would happen without me present, without me controlling it, without me needing to say another word. The truth was out there now. Let them deal with it. I started the car and pulled away from the house as the first person came running out the front door, but I didn't look back to see who it was. I drove for 20 minutes before my phone started ringing. I didn't answer. It rang continuously. My father, Susan, Claire, numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off completely and kept driving, no destination in mind, just movement away from what I'd left behind. Eventually, I ended up at a parking lot overlooking the valley, the city lights spreading out below. I sat there in the darkness, engine off, waiting for something, guilt, regret, satisfaction. None of it came. I just felt empty, hollowed out, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that putting it down left me unbalanced. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were 47 missed calls and 63 text messages. Susan. How could you do this to him? Claire. We need to talk. Call me. David. You okay? Don't answer that. Just checking you're safe. Unknown number. This is Robert. Your father is asking me to contact you about legal options. Legal options. What was he going to do? Sue me for playing a video made from documents that legally belonged to me? There was nothing from my father directly. Nothing from Sonia. Maria called at midnight. I answered. Are you alive? She asked. Yes. David called me. Told me what happened. Said the room imploded. People yelling, crying. Your father trying to defend himself while Sonia had some kind of breakdown. Good. Where are you? Parking lot. Just sitting. Do you want company? Not really. Too bad. I'm bringing coffee. She arrived 30 minutes later and got in my passenger seat without asking. We sat in silence before she spoke. David said Susan threatened to leave, and Claire told your father he was a coward. You accomplished what you wanted. You also probably destroyed your relationship with your entire family. I didn't have a relationship with them. I had a performance. You know what the worst part is? You're not even wrong. Everything in that video, it was all true, wasn't it? Every word, every date. That's what makes this so awful. You didn't manipulate anything. You just showed people what actually happened, and they're going to hate you for it because it's easier than hating him. I know. She was quiet. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and realize you're completely alone. Just you and the truth you decided was more important than everything else. It was more important. Your mother is still gone, Julian. Your father is still who he is. The only thing that's different is now everyone's uncomfortable and angry, and you're the one they're going to blame. I drank the coffee she'd brought and watched the city lights. She wasn't wrong. By tomorrow, the narrative would already be shifting. Julian, the troubled son who couldn't handle his mother's passing. Julian who weaponized grief and destroyed a family gathering. David asked me to tell you something, Maria said. He said he believes you. He said the dates matched things he remembered. He's not going to defend what you did publicly, but he wanted you to know you weren't wrong. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire. I need to hear your side, not tonight, but soon. The journal entries? I remember some of those dates. See, Maria said, they won't all dismiss you. But most will. Probably. That's the price of truth-telling. Another text came through from an unknown number. This is Sonia. You're a vindictive, hateful person who will regret this. You should be ashamed. I deleted it without responding. We sat in the car until 2 a.m. Finally, Maria yawned. I should go. You should go home and sleep. I drove home slowly, avoiding the route past my father's house. My apartment felt smaller than usual. I stood looking at my mother's desk in the corner, the journals locked safely inside. I thought about her final entry, about how she'd left the choice to me. She'd known I would do this. She'd known I would eventually reach a point where protecting everyone else's comfort became impossible. And she'd given me permission. Not just permission, documentation, evidence. My phone buzzed. My father, finally. You've made your point. I hope you're satisfied, but understand this. You're not welcome in this family anymore. Not at gatherings, not at holidays, not ever. You chose your mother's memory over your living family. Live with that choice. I read it twice, looking for hurt or anger or regret. Found only distant acknowledgement. I typed a response. I chose accuracy over comfort. There's a difference, and I'd make the same choice again. I hit send. The phone rang immediately. My father. I answered. Do you understand what you've done? His voice was shaking. You've destroyed me. My reputation, my engagement, all of it. For what? For the truth, which you were happy to bury. She was sick, Julian. Paranoid. She was accurate. Every single entry. I verified them independently. I watched you in that parking lot. I saw the hotel receipt. I witnessed everything she documented. You were protecting her then. Why not now? Because then, protecting her meant staying quiet. Now protecting her means making sure she's remembered correctly. Fine. You want to be right? You win. I was seeing Sonia. I was unhappy. Your mother was sick for a long time, and I was lonely. That's the truth. Are you satisfied? That's not the truth. That's the justification. The truth is you chose to rewrite history rather than own what you'd done. Silence. Then quietly. She always knew you'd do this. Even at the end, she'd look at you with this expression, like she was trusting you with something. I didn't understand what it was. Then you knew this was coming. Don't contact me again, he said. Don't come to family events. As far as I'm concerned, you're not my son anymore. As far as I'm concerned, you stopped being my father the moment you lied to a woman in a hospital bed about where you'd been. He hung up. I walked to the window. Dawn was starting to break over the valley, light creeping across the city, illuminating all the places where people were waking up to their comfortable narratives, their agreed-upon versions of truth. Somewhere in that city, my father was explaining things to Sonia. Somewhere, Susan was processing what she'd witnessed. Somewhere, Claire was cross-referencing dates in her memory. Somewhere, David was probably still awake, thinking about patterns he'd noticed but never questioned. My phone buzzed. Maria. Still alive? I typed back. Still here. Good. Coffee later? Yeah, coffee later. I set the phone down and watched the sunrise, feeling nothing and everything, empty and full, alone and somehow less alone than I'd been in a year. The truth was out. Let them do with it what they wanted. I'd done my part.